I would like to welcome from London Dr. Marcos Papadopoulos, expert on international relations. Dr. Marcos, after great news, hello, Dr. Marcos. How do you see these developments and this explosion happening at the same time with this important visit for the French president to Syria?
Allow me to say, first of all, that Syria is dead, having died on the day that President Assad was forced to flee as a result of Al-Qaeda having come to power in the country. So what is referred to today as Syria is an entity controlled by the Western ruling elites or globalists and Israel. What we call today Syria is neither independent nor sovereign. Indeed, much of the north of Syria is under the occupation of Turkey, whilst much of the southern part of the country is under the occupation of Israel. So we need to be very clear that Syria is dead. As regards to Macron's visit to Damascus and an explosion there, well, that is of no importance whatsoever. What is important is that the president of France, who says publicly that he fights against Islamist terrorism, is now in Damascus, which is under the control of Al-Qaeda, and he is meeting with a president who is Al-Qaeda. So that is the true reality of the situation, and that is the reality that people across the world should be focusing on, not explosions.
Dr. Marcos, in your opinion, do you think what is happening today in Syria could affect the investors who come with Syria, could affect the investment opportunities in Syria, especially with many investors come to support investment in Syria?
No, I do not. Certainly, it is the case that in this so-called Syria, there will be numerous ethnic, religious groups who are not happy with the country being ruled by Al-Qaeda. So there will be a degree of internal friction, of internal fighting. However, what we see are Western companies, are Israeli companies having moved in to this Syria and have taken control of Syria's industries and natural resources. In short, Syria's industries, Syria's natural resources have been plundered by foreigners. Syria is now a springboard which enables the Israelis to increase their power in the Eastern Mediterranean, in North Africa and in the Middle East, and also for the Western ruling elites or the globalists to cement their supremacy in the Middle East as a whole. And some of your audience could argue that Russia is also part of this, to which I would say, yes, your audience is correct, because Russia has raised the Al-Qaeda government in Damascus. Why have they done that? The Russians have done that in the hope that they will retain their naval presence on the coastline, on Syria's coastline. And the Russians are only able to do that because of Russia's close relationship with Israel. But I believe that sooner rather than later, the globalists and the Israelis will evict the Russian Navy and the Russian Air Force, of course, from Syria.
Dr. Marcos, how do you see this explosion from the security perspective? How do you see this from the security perspective?
I believe it will be used by Macron, by Western mainstream media as a whole, to say more attention must be given to Syria, more money must be poured into Syria to ensure that Syria transitions to democracy, to freedom, and thereby becomes, economically speaking, a strong and stable country. History teaches us that even from the 1990s onwards, that explosions have happened in a country of strategic importance when a Western leader has visited. Why? Because then that explosion is used to the benefit of the Western leader concerned and by Western mainstream media. I think it is far too coincidental to claim that this explosion happened on the very day and at the very time that Macron was in Damascus. Again, history teaches us that explosions are orchestrated, and that is not talking in a fantasy manner. No, just have a look at what happened, for example, in Sarajevo during the Bosnian Civil War. Whenever there was a major international meeting in Sarajevo, there would be bombings, there would be other kinds of explosions. And at the time, and then certainly after the Bosnian War, it was determined by independent experts that those explosions had been orchestrated.
Dr. Marcos, did you tie between today's explosion and explosions that target a cafe in Damascus? Do you think any link between these two explosions?
Again, history teaches us that a regime can kill its own people in order to achieve an objective, either its own objective, or if the regime is controlled by foreign powers, then the regime is carrying out the orders given to it by
Dr. Marcos,
foreign
allow
rulers.
me to mention that the Syrian forces, Syrian authorities did not announce who is accountable for this fighting. But let me ask you again, can we connect what happened today with what happened before? And this doesn't mean that today's explosion is to target the French president. Do you think that's targeting for him? Or even to affect this visit? Do you think that this is just an explosion that happened in addition to the explosions that happened already 2 days ago?
It is certainly not the case that this explosion is related to Macron's visit to Damascus. No, it is either an explosion carried out by one group against another group, or it has been orchestrated. And I would say it is more than likely the latter. It has been orchestrated. Let us see how French mainstream media, how Western mainstream media responds to this explosion. Let's see what follows. Again, do not neglect history. History never ends. History repeats itself.
Dr. Marcos, how French would see this explosion was happening in the same time of this important visit?
Well, again, the question, if French mainstream media was truly independent and free, then a French journalist would ask Macron, why are you visiting Damascus, which is under the control of Al-Qaeda? And why are you meeting with a president who is from Al-Qaeda? Why? That's the only question that should be asked pertaining to Macron's visit to Damascus. There's no other question to ask. Al-Qaeda came to power at the end of 2024 in Syria. Jalani is an Al-Qaeda terrorist. So why is it that, for example, the West and Israel now recognize him. It is because the West and Israel are in bed with Islamist terrorists, including Al-Qaeda and ISIS. There is no other explanation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marcos, Dr. Marcos, for all of this information.